Dear listeners, you are welcome to your program Tax Matters on your dialing station IBR 92.5 FM, the award-winning station and the only business radio in Nigeria. I'm your anchor on this program, Abiola Ali. On today's program, we shall be discussing personal income tax. And I already have my guests seated to discuss this particular topic, personal income tax. I have Mrs. Olaiton Babatunde, a tax expert and practitioner, and the treasurer of the Chartered Association of Nigeria, Ibadan District Society. Mrs. Olaiton, you are welcome to IBR 92.5 FM.
Thank you very much, sir.
I also have with me Mrs. Shuremeku Victoria Olateju. She's a chartered accountant. She's a chartered accountant and also a tax practitioner.
Good afternoon, sir. You're welcome.
On today's program, like I said, we shall be discussing personal income tax. And so many people don't even understand personal income tax. They keep hearing personal income tax. We don't know whether it is the state that will collect the personal income tax or whether it is going to be collected by the federal. And essentially, it is the tax that is imposed on individuals who are either in employment or are running their own small businesses under a business name or partnership. Let me start with you, Mrs. Babatunde.
Okay, sir.
What is personal income tax?
Personal income tax. Let me start with taxation itself. You know, when we say personal income tax, the most important in that word is tax. And tax, as you know, is a compulsory levy that is collected by the government. When we talk about tax, immediately what comes to our mind is they are talking about those big companies that makes a lot of money. But let's come home to personal income tax. Personal income tax is talking about your responsibility as a citizen of a nation. You have an obligation to the government of your nation. That is what personal income tax is talking about. Compulsory levy that you as a citizen is bound to pay to the government of the nation. That is personal income tax. It is not optional. It is a compulsory levy.
In my intro, I said that this tax, people don't even know where to pay this tax. Whether it's going to be paid to the state or it's going to be paid to the federal.
Okay. Paying personal income tax now, your obligation as an individual or as an enterprise, a petty trader, is to your state of residence.
Okay.
Everybody in Nigeria, you know where you are resident in a particular year.
Okay.
That is where you pay your tax to, your personal income tax. It is the incorporated entity, companies, public companies, private companies, that pays to the federal government. Before the creation of the Internal Revenue Service in the FCT, every resident of FCT pays to the federal government. But now we have the Internal Revenue Service of the FCT, which is saddled with the responsibility of collecting the personal income tax of residents of the FCT. So basically, your personal income tax responsibility is to your state of residence.
So, if I'm working in Ibadan, but I live in Lagos, what it means is that from your definition, I will need to pay my tax in Lagos.
Yeah, because that is where you are resident.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Churemeku,
Okay.
I have asked her that who collects the personal income tax. Maybe you want to comment here.
Yeah, as the name depicts, the personal income tax, and as she has rightly said, it's a tax that is charged on profits made by an individual, whether on your business or on your trade or vocation, or even if you're in employment. You are working in a place, and that place where you are working, you are responsible to pay tax where you are living. And where you are living, assuming it's the same place where you are working, then the tax authority in that place, that is where you are going to pay your tax. But assuming, as you have seen, that you are now working in Lagos now, and you are living in Ibadan, your place of residence, because you are enjoying certain benefits. That is the way government look at it. Where you stay, where you resident, you are enjoying some benefits. So where you are enjoying benefits, your place of residence, then you are entitled to pay your tax because of what you are benefiting from that place. So the onus line on your employer, so you remit your tax to the appropriate tax authority there.
Then let's look at something. If I'm in a salary paid employment,
Okay.
whether I like it or not, my PIT, personal income payee,
Yeah, that is pay as you earn.
Will
You
be
won't even collect it before it's deducted.
will be deducted from source. In fact, before I collect the salary,
So
they will have deducted it.
Yeah.
That is for those people that are in paid employment. But there are a vast majority of people who are in informal sector. They sell one thing or the other in the marketplace. Some people are doing one thing or the other. They are not in paid employment. And majority of these people are not even aware that they have an obligation to pay tax. So what can government do to be able to bring all these people to the tax net?
I'm sure we will get there in Nigeria, because we all know that the focus is now being shifted to tax. The oil is drying up. We are not making much from that end again. So the focus is now on tax. And the focus is now more on the informal sector, because before now, you discover that it is those who are working in the organized sector that bears this burden. Before they pay me, my salary is already deducted. Whereas there are a lot of petty traders out there making 10 times what I'm making, who are avoiding this tax because we don't have system in place to bring them into the tax net. But I can assure you, even Oyo State that we have, they are paying so much attention on the informal sector. And very soon, a system will be in place that will make it so easy for you to comply. What we need to start with is building a tax culture into our people. Nigerians, an average Nigeria does not have a tax culture. We don't want to pay tax. Even those people that are paying, that are suffering pay as you earn, the salaried people, if you give them the opportunity, try them with their salary and ask them to go and pay afterwards, you know that nobody will comply. So this informal sector, we are trying to bring them into the tax net, to make them aware that it is an obligation. It is their statutory responsibility to pay tax. And because by the time government start tying things into your tax payments, people will don't no more have a choice other than to pay tax. People will start voluntarily complying. You know, for example, we've been seeing Lagos as a pace setter in this tax thing, because we've really gone a long way. You discover now that in Lagos, the level of voluntary compliance is increasing by the day. Because even if you are accosted by a last man on the road, the next thing he's asking is your tax card. Even if you are a mechanic, even if you are a sewing mistress, the next thing they ask you is your tax card. So if Lagos can achieve that, I'm sure every other state in this country will get there. We need to, first of all, give our people this consciousness that it is their obligation to pay tax. And we'll get there. People in the informal sector will soon be in the tax net.
Maybe part of the reasons why we're not getting enough mileage from the collection of taxes is because we try to drive tax collection manually. But in today's world, technology is the in thing. People use technology to drive tax collections. When are we going to be there in Nigeria, especially in Oyo State?
It's now in the hands of the federal government and the state government, because this technology you are talking about, they ought to put things in its rightful place. They want to collect this tax, and they don't want any administrative inefficiency then the technology should be in place. So which means for us to get there, government themselves should put this technology in place. I can remember the other time I saw an article about this global positioning somehow, that wherever you may be, even if you are in a hidden corner, the government will know where you are. And I can observe that will be going up and down. You see some people, they say, where I am, I received a letter from the Inland Revenue that I should come and pay tax. And somebody has shown me a letter. It's a small business organization in one corner, near that one corner. I was surprised. So they even know that you are here. So we mean something has been going on somehow. That the officials or whatever, whether in technology or which has to be improved anyway, that wherever you are, there's no hidden corner for anybody now. Whether you are a small firm or a big firm or a medium-sized firm. Because you are enjoying some benefits. Though we may be crying, it's not enough, the roads are still bad, the bridges are not okay, water, electricity, all these amenities are not yet in place. But government knows their responsibility. Do we have enough revenue? Then if you don't have sufficient, especially now that the herd is dwindling, it has even dwindled, not it's dwindling now, it has come down drastically. So the focus that is on this revenue to be generated is on tax payments. So the technology has to be improved. The global positioning somehow that I read, I think they're saying that it's a way that we get to know that in a street or maybe in a corner, they will know that a business is existing in that place and they will serve you later. And with the internet, wherever anyone is hiding, I think it will be possible. The only thing that the government should brace up to challenges that in as much as they want to earn more revenue, then let them be faithful with what they are collecting and let them use these funds properly for the citizens. And they should create enough awareness, the reason why you ought to pay and what you are benefiting from this payment. And without you, the government is on there. And who are the government? You and me, we are the government. So if I want things to be in its proper shape, then I have to be, because it's a civic responsibility for me to pay my tax. So as an individual and as a business organization, I think once the awareness is there and I'm seeing what I'm benefiting, so government should even improve on this technology to get to know wherever any individual or maybe a business or a small firm is existing, and be able to earn enough revenue or generate enough revenue.
Okay,
I
okay.
want to add something to this issue of technology. I think we have some constraints in Nigeria before we can get there. You know, when you talk about technology, what drives it is power. So if our power is not sorted out, we can't really get there in Nigeria. And another thing, before we can drive our tax with technology, is the level of literacy of our people. You know, when the level of literacy is very high, people will understand better. People will be able to walk into the bank and pick a tax form that I want to declare my income, I want to fill my self-assessment form. A trader will not need to depend on somebody to help me. Please let me calculate this. You understand what I'm saying? If our level of literacy is improved, we'll be able to rely on technology. And we need to sort out our power issue. Because those two plays a very, very major role in using technology to drive tax. I remember when FRS introduced this e-payments and automatic generation of tickets by the printer. Before the reform, when you get to FRS, banks will bring mandates, they will write receipt for you manually, and there were a lot of mix-up. They wanted to improve on it, and they introduced the technology. But when it was introduced, you discover that when they sent the information from the system to the printer with the schedule sent to the printer, there might be a power failure. And that gave them a whole lot of problem, because when there is such power failure, they'll tell you the computer cannot repeat printing that particular lot. So a lot of mix-up happened, a lot of receipts were not printed, and there were a lot of reconciliation to be done. But if our power was doing good, that would not be a problem. So I think before we can rely on driving our tax with technology, our power sector has a major role to play in that.
Okay, let's look at this as a practitioner and as a member of CITN. We want to drive tax. We want to drive personal income tax. Then where do we start from? I'm a barber, I'm a mechanic. I don't even know, maybe I'm just hearing this thing for the first time. I don't even know how to go about it. But I am willing to pay. How do I go about it? What are those things that I need to do for me to be able to discharge my civic responsibility?
Let me start with what the government needs to do. First of all, they need to simplify the way we pay tax. It should not be cumbersome. Because a mechanic doesn't have the time to go and queue up in one tax office to render his or her return. A sewing mistress or a hairdresser that has customers waiting in line for a service, we find it very difficult to spare 2 hours to go and fill a form somewhere. So first of all, government needs to break this process down and make it as simple as possible to encourage voluntary compliance. And another thing, we still need to do more awareness. Thank God for a radio station like this. This is quite impressive. And I'm sure by the end of this year, more people will be aware. Because what we need is awareness. Some people feel that who pays tax? Tax is for civil servants. Some people in private sector don't even pay tax.
Who are literate?
Who are literate. They employ 5, 6, 7 people and say, how much am I paying them? It's not necessary. Even literate people. Because they don't know their civic responsibility. So the more of the responsibility lies on the government to make people aware. And a way government can make people aware is when these people see what governments are using this money for. By the time government starts singing that, see, the little I've been able to achieve was done through taxpayers' money, somebody will think one day that, what is this taxpayers' money they are talking about? Have I ever paid tax? Who are these taxpayers? People will become aware. So we need to start from the government. And I'm sure Nigerians, we adapt so easily. If we are taught how to pay that levy, Nigerians will pay. But the issue is most Nigerians don't even know.
But how do is there any form that I'm supposed to pick? If I'm ready now.
Now, Oyo State has Internal Revenue Services office all around. You don't have to go to the secretariat again. You can go to the nearest office to you. We have it at Onireke, Challenge, everywhere. And this thing is like a self-assessment. You just state your income. And the taxman will tell you how much tax liability you have to pay.
So, that is on one part. I have discharged my responsibility. But I also need to know what they have used the money for. Because normally when I pay tax, they're supposed to use the money to drive development.
Yeah.
But most people do complain that we can't see what they're using the money for. What can you say about this?
I think that is the responsibility of the government. Like we have been saying, we have, at least in their own way, they have created some awareness. People know what, you can even do the signboard here and there, payment of tax is a responsibility. But people will waive it off. Why? Because government is not alive to their responsibility. I think the government, the little we have been hearing, this is not the first time we have been talking about tax matters or maybe collection of taxes or then using the tax collected for the benefits of the citizen. But it has to be obvious. That is why I said people should know why they have to pay this tax. Why should I pay? What am I benefiting? I'm not that the government is not trying. They are trying in their own little way. But I think they have to do more. Look at the electricity, the power sector that we have just mentioned now. Is it not the taxpayers that is paying for all this? Cost of the roads and the bridges. You are creating awareness. Yes, I can say relatively, even if it's not up to half of the citizens that have not been aware, not less than 1/4 anyway. But what have I seen? What am I benefiting? What am I enjoying? The little you have collected, look at the pay as you hand, whether you like it or not. At socks, it is the net, and even it's a withholding tax because your employer will have withheld the tax before you are giving the net payment. And whether you like this or not, it must remit. And that's why there's penalties and fines for any employer that has not remitted either the appropriate amount or the actual amount, or it's not even filing returns. The little the governments have been collecting from taxpayers, either individual or businesses, are we feeling the impact, the positive impact of this collection, especially on this electricity? I'm to generate my own power. I'm to get my own water to supply
Even the road.
the roads even. Yeah, that's why you have the community effort. The community effort is even repairing some of their own roads, their own little effort that they can do. The local governments, they have their responsibility. The state government, they have their responsibilities, like what the federal government. Because the local government, they are even generating their own funds in their own little ways. Charges and levies on the citizens, the market women, whether they like it, they see them with their own receipts. No, even the carriers. And then the market carriers too, they even pay. Whether you call it taxi or whatever, to them it is a worry. Both the levies, the charges, the tax itself, they have collected something from the citizen. Look at the market, the big markets. I think the government is responsible to make sure the markets are in place. You enter some big markets, you can't even say this is a market. So, if the government is alive to their responsibility, ensuring the tax collected is religiously utilized for the citizen, I think people will be motivated.
So thank you very much. Okay, let's come to this. We are talking about the informal sector. Look at it. One union will go there, collect levy from them. One local government will go there, collect levy from them. These people cannot even distribute between levy and tax. And now we are talking of personal income tax. Don't you think government needs to harmonize this?
Exactly. Government needs to harmonize this. But at times when you look at it, the problem with government's inability to collect tax is as if the government has lost the willpower to do it. They don't have the moral justification to ask for it. And that has given them weakness in pursuing it because they don't have the moral justification again. Look at a market, a large market, for example. Those people, they are so honest with the levy placed on them by their union because they know what this money will be used for. They know who are in charge and they trust themselves with it. And that is why they don't have to ask them. In the morning, they know whether it's 50 naira I'm paying today, they voluntarily pay it. So our government needs to wake up to their responsibility. If they do, they will have the courage and the willpower to ask people to pay this money. That has been the problem.
But look at Nigeria today. Okay, let's start from Oyo State.
Okay.
The average collection on a monthly basis is between 1 billion and 1.3 billion naira. Now we have told the people that we want to raise the bar from 1 billion to 5 billion on a monthly basis. If we are not fixing all these things, all these loopholes that we are highlighting, do you think this target is realizable?
I would say that it's good to set target, but how reasonable is this target? And how do you want to achieve it? You know, two ways of increasing the IGR is that you are going out there to bring more people into the tax net. But by the time you focus on the people already in the tax net and target that if I collected 100 naira from you last year, I want to increase it by 25%. Who does that? I don't believe any employer of labor in Oyo State will say that in the last 2-3 years, he has increased salary by 25%. Yet, you hear from the Inland Revenue at the Secretariat, if you are filing for tax clearance for an individual under direct assessment, if you pay so much last year, you are expected to pay 25% more this year. That is not right. The only way I think government can achieve these targets they've set for themselves is to go out there, bring more people into the tax net, and let people see why they are in the tax net. Let people see their money in action. Other states, the slogan is taxpayers' money in action. Let us be able to say that in Oyo State, that taxpayers' money is in action. When we see that, people will voluntarily comply. But when we don't even know what government is doing with our money, it's so difficult to ask people to pay more. It will be even difficult to ask more people, to bring more people into the tax net. So our government must wake up to their responsibility and show us what is happening to taxpayers' money. Let us see our money in action, and then we'll be able to talk to ourselves to do more.
Okay, look at personal income tax. I want to pay personal income tax, but I need to get some reliefs, because tax avoidance, they say, it's not illegal, it's legal.
Mm-hmm.
It's legal.
Evasion, that is a crime.
It's evasion that's a crime. Okay, what are those things that I need to consider before I can be assessed for tax, for personal income tax? That will go a long way to reduce the amount that I'm going to pay as tax.
As an individual taxpayer, we have some reliefs that will reduce the tax burden. After you might have filed your standard form, that's a standard form that the employer will collect on behalf of the employee, which the employer will complete, and after completion, that it has to be returned to the revenue, stating the employees the total emoluments or whether any other benefits that you have been enjoying. But the revenue, that the tax authority has made provision for some reliefs, and that is your personal relief. Before it used to be all this children allowance, but it's no longer like that. It's now consolidated. So we have the consolidated relief allowance and some other contributions like your pension contribution, your national housing or whatever. So there are certain reliefs that the tax authority has considered to relieve an individual from the tax burden. And if you are lucky, if you have this on-hand income, you have some investment that can reduce your tax bill by the withholding tax that you have paid. So all these reliefs are there that will be consolidated for you and that will be used in reducing the tax liabilities of an individual taxpayer.
Okay, okay, you want to say something?
Another tax planning that individuals have not been exploring. Now that we have a consolidated relief, there's little or nothing you can do about managing your tax affairs. But do you realize that you could claim more relief if you subscribe to life insurance, for example? But at times we are lazy. We don't want to claim our rights. Even as...
Are we lazy? Or we're ignorant?
Okay, maybe I should say we take things for granted.
Okay.
What's the effect? I can't be bothered. But all these little things, they are your rights. Even if you are under the pay-as-you-earn scheme, you could submit your life insurance paper to your employee. Please, make sure I get more relief because I have life insurance. It's your right. But hardly will you see anybody. And do you know that even the pension scheme, the Pension Reform Act now says 18%, 10% by the employer and 8% by employee. Do you know that if on your own you decide to save more, that will be a relief? That amount you are saving will be relieved before your tax is computed. So there is still little way. But because Most people will say, my take-home pay cannot even take me home. I can't be saving extra. Why not? You can save extra. The extra you are saving is still yours. Sometimes in the future, and you are getting a tax relief now. So it's not a bad idea. But I discovered that nobody has been exploring that. We just want to earn everything that we can earn from our income and spend it here and now.
Okay, let's even look at this one. The government doesn't have what it takes to bring so many people to the tax net, into the tax net. Maybe that is why they are thinking of reviewing the tax rate upward. Do you think this is appropriate at this point in time to review tax rate upward when you are supposed to bring more and more people to the tax net?
That's why this government should be alive to their responsibilities. These people you are even increasing their tax rates. How much are they earning? Then why should you focus on certain people to generate this revenue? Why not expand your net, then bring in more people? Go to the ground level, wherever you can get taxpayers.
It doesn't even have to be the grand level. For all you can in Nigeria, it is our rich people that knows how to evade tax. All these rich men, they are not paying as much as they ought to pay. Even look at these Nollywood people. If you hear in the news today, one has bought house at Banana Island. This one has bought an hotel at Songwater. How much tax has he ever paid? So why not look into such angles and bring more people into the tax net instead of overburdening the people already there? I don't think it's a wise idea at this point in time in Nigeria, when people are barely surviving. Raising the tax rates will be suicidal.
And in addition, as she has rightly said the other time, that you have to tie this collection of taxes maybe to some benefits that people will enjoy. Before you can do this, you should show your tax clearance. Show your tax clearance certificates before you can enjoy this thing. There are some things that people just take for granted, that nobody is looking at me, so, and if I want to do this, I can do it. So maybe if you tie it to something,
you know the problem with Nigeria. Before now, that works because we depend on government for so many things. But now, I'm sure your children are not going to the public school. If I ask you now, I can't remember when last you visited government hospital. We seem not to have anything to do with government again. Everybody is his or our own local government now. We look for our water, for our electricity. We build our road ourselves. Before now, when governments were providing all these things, it is easier for government to say, before we can admit your child to the school, you must show your tax clearance. Before we will register your child for WAEC, we want to see your tax clearance. Before you can be admitted to the hospital. How many people rely on government for all those now? So that is one of the reasons why it's not been happening.
Thank you very much. It's been very, very interesting listening to my guest on this program. We're still on Tax Matters on IBR 92.5 FM, where we're discussing personal income tax. I still have in the studio with me my guest, Mrs. Olaiton Babatunde, a tax expert and practitioner and a treasurer of the CITN Ibadan Justice Society, Ibadan. And I also have with me Mrs. Shuremeko Victoria Olateju, a chartered accountant and a tax practitioner. Before we went on break, we were discussing what government can do to bring more and more people into the tax net. But let me ask this question. When you look at the number of people that are supposed to be brought into the tax net, vis-a-vis the people that we have in the state's internal board of internal revenue and even the federal internal revenue service, do we have enough people to drive this tax, considering the population?
Not. Definitely not. we don't have enough people. The number of tax administrators compared to our populace is a far cry. So, unfortunately, no government is thinking about recruiting now because of the economy of the nation. But I think they need to give it a second thought, because Yoruba will say, "Owo la fin wowo." If they will not invest in the staff, they will not be able to make enough revenue. Even the number of staff they have, they still need to do a lot of training and retraining, because we are lagging behind in Nigeria. The tax, even globally, is the in thing now. Every country is so conscious and aware of tax. Presently, there is a tax conference going on in Uganda. Tax about conference on African tax. It's a colleague of mine is attending. We chatted this morning, and he was telling me that it's quite embarrassing that no member of staff of Federal Inland Revenue is represented in that conference. Can you imagine? It's quite embarrassing for us as a nation, where the tax of Africa is being discussed, and we say we are the giants of Africa.
Are we giants of Africa?
Indeed.
That's it.
Okay.
So we say we are giants of Africa. So no member of staff of FRS is represented. How much more a state's internal revenue service? So we still need to invest in our tax administration.
Okay, madam.
Yes, that, to me, I would say government is just crying, they want more revenue, more revenue, more revenue. What are the strategies you have put in place for you to hand this more revenue? Do you know, the other time I said, it's because, especially on this pay as you hand, that whether you like it or not, it's being deducted at source. So they will focus more on you, because your money, the net you are going to collect, you would even be estimating it that, by at the end of the month, maybe 50,000 naira or something. They focus on you because whether you like it or your hold is so genuine to them, and they are going to generate this revenue. So all this crying, you want to increase taxes, they are still focusing on pay as on hand. To me, the highlights are there, the big companies are there that they're supposed to focus upon. So now the inefficiency in this tax administration, I think they should go and sort it out. You have so many people that you want to bring into the tax net, and you have fewer tax administrators. And that's why we have so many touts. Thank God, I think they are now trying to reduce it in Lagos. I don't know here what is happening. So you see some people are carrying, they will carrying ID card as if they are staff of this revenue, inland revenue, whatever. And look at our people, because of the amount they are going to pay, they will quickly employ them. Whether they are now giving a fake certificate or fake whatever, they will collect it. So you just can't be shouting we want to generate revenue when this administration is not properly in place, when the administrators are not trained or developed as expected. So they should stop crying they want to increase tax when other administrative aspects are not in place.
Thank you very much. Your advice to the taxpayers and the government
My advice to the taxpayer is
regarding personal income tax.
Personal income tax. If you are faithful with your personal income tax, if you pay your tax, you will have the will, you will have the guts to ask questions. We seem to be passive in Nigeria because we are not feeling the pain. But by the time you pay through your nose, you won't be comfortable if somebody is wasting that resources. So I encourage taxpayers, let's wake up to our responsibility. If we do, we will have the guts, we will have the moral justification to ask how our money is being spent. We will want to see how taxpayers' money is in action. That would be my advice to taxpayers. And for people in paid employment, you are suffering personal pay as you earn. Even before your money is paid, it's being deducted. Please ask questions. Are your employers remitting this money? The only way you can ask question is for you to ask for your personal tax clearance certificate. It's your right. Ask your employer, please, throughout last year you deducted my money. I need my personal tax clearance to pursue some personal things. It is your right. When you do that, you are curbing them, because we know a number of companies that will deduct without remitting to the government. That's another story for another day. But please, as a taxpayer, it is your right. Ask your employer for your tax clearance certificate.
My own advice goes strictly to the government, the administrative part of it. Let them administer this collection of tax properly. Because worldwide now, the focus is on generating revenue via tax payments. So, and we know what is going in the developed country. They use taxpayers' money to develop their country. Then why are we lacking behind? The giant of Africa, we are giant indeed. So, the onus lies on the government, whether at state level or federal level or local level, because taxpayers, they are ready to pay, I'm telling you. Once I see my money being utilized judiciously, I'm ready to pay. And look at the pay as you hand, whether you like it or not, is deducted at source. So please, I'm advising the government, they should wake up. They should wake up. They have more to enjoy from the taxpayers' money, so that they can have enough funds to utilize for the development of the nation.
Well, I want to appreciate you and thank you for coming on this program. Mrs. Olaitobabatunde, a tax expert and practitioner, and also the Honorable Treasurer of CITN, Ibadan District Society.
Thank you very much, sir.
I also want to appreciate Ms. Shura Meku Victoria Lateju, a chartered accountant and a tax practitioner, for your thoughts on this program.
Thank you very much, sir.
Listeners, time is not our time. We want to wrap up now, but before we wrap up, let us know some of the things that my discussant today have said. They said we need to train and retrain the staff. We need more and more enlightenment. People need to be enlightened on the payment of taxes. Then more people are supposed to be brought into the tax net. This is much more honorable than increasing the tax rates. Then we need to also harmonize the taxes. Those people in the market paying this levy, that levy, and we are also saying they should pay PIT. We need to ensure that we harmonize all these taxes and levies so that they know what they want to pay. Also, government on their part needs to be responsible, need to be responsive, need to be responsible. They need to be sensitive. They also need to make judicious use of any tax money that they collect so that people can see what they have used the tax money for. On this note, I want to appreciate the listener for listening to this program. Wednesday next week is another day. Till next week, Wednesday, bye for now.